last night. Seems alcohol kind of is the trigger that makes us go a little bit further. But we are able to share ideas about many different things because we understand how we want to listen to other ideas. The biggest problem probably comes when people talk with computers, or when computers talk with people. We've all seen the clip that I've not been able to find, but basically it's a cliche of someone smashing a computer because it's not doing what they want to do. And really this is because of the interface we've had to deal with. We had them sort of cards years and years ago with holes in you drop in. Been more recently replaced with a nice little black screen with some white text that scared the hell out of everyone. And then Windows, which scared the hell out of everyone as well. Now we're getting a little bit better. We've got these touch devices. We can even talk to computers sometimes. And we've got the ones you can move around and you can play games. It's more natural than pressing the buttons. But these are just little steps. We're still just taking small steps. And also, it's not just the way we interact with the computer, in the sense that the way we touch and talk to it. It's what we do with it. Before, in the past, we would query the computer. We'd ask it for information, and we'd query it on a load of yeses and nos. And the reason we did that was because that's the only way you could do it. That's the only thing it could understand. It was lots of if yes, then do this, if no, do something else. But really, we really deal a lot more in maybes, possiblies, and sometimes. So to put this into context, to give you an example of the use case of your average teenager now, is if we say, I want to send a picture of a cat to a friend. In the past, we'd have to write something like this into Google. Cats and speech marks with the and to explain I want both, and hats. And it would very literally look for all the documents that had the word cat in, and anything with the word hat in, and go, well, I think that's a match, and present it to you. Again, that's very, very yes and no. Now we can write something a little bit like cute cats with crazy hats, and it's going to go find pictures that it feels matches this. They're not 100%, because it does this in a very semantic way. It's attempting to understand your interpretation. Chances are you'll find a cat with a jacket, or when I did this yesterday, there was a dog with a Santa hat. But it's close to the intention that you were looking for. Now, what does this mean? And what can we actually do with this? Well, search is changing. And it's changing in everything that we do. And it's also going to be changing in travel too. And the thing that underpins this is machine learning, which is something we spend a lot of time looking at. It's not just in semantic search where machine learning is used. It's used in stock trading. Although since if you blindfold a monkey and give it a dartboard and let it throw some darts, it'll do only slightly worse than the average trained professional. Also, classifying DNA, we'd be absolutely nowhere without the progress made there. And Google, they've got a car to drive about 300,000 miles with, I think, no accidents. My parents will tell you I didn't manage less than 1,000, I think, and that's me being generous. So the idea that this isn't coming to us is probably a false one. It's going to arrive, and it's what we do with it when it gets here. Another thing to think about is back in 2009, Netflix, they did a competition to see who can improve the algorithm to know how much you'd enjoy the next film you're about to watch based on your previous films. They put a prize out there, someone went and won it, increased it by 10%, and they got $1 million prize. Facebook, they did a similar thing recently. There's a prize who can understand how you can, what people are likely to go around their site, how they walk there. The prize, a job interview. There's so many more people doing this now, and it's almost expected. But yet, we're still asking people to search for a site on something like this. It's all very common. You have a start date and an end date, a little duration, and go find. We're really giving someone a binary way of searching. So we want to open this out a little bit. And this is where this project started off for me. And I was really excited about it. And one of the things that made sense to look at was actually changing the interface. Instead of having that form to fill in, because I don't like filling forms in, and I don't expect that when I go to a travel agent. So was to get it to understand my intention when I'm speaking or when I'm asking it something. So there's a really big restriction in this, in that computers don't get that. They don't understand the sort of the words that we may or may not be using. And to understand human text, the way that we may phrase things is very difficult. However, there's a possibility now. And some of you will have heard of this and come across it. And we have NLP, which is natural language processing. And it's the way that the machine will understand what you're asking for and what you mean by it. It does this with machine learning. It's just one of the many, many uses. It'll attempt to take the semantic meaning from what you're asking for and make something from it. We can recognize things like dates and times, locations, activities that you might want to be doing. Now, since I'm a techie person, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about how this works and then explain how maybe we can make some use of this. So if we start with a nice simple phrase of I want to go to Paris, what the machine does is breaks it down and then starts to tag it and say, well, these are the grammatical terms that identify this. Once we have this, we have the basis of data points. And machine learning is just something that takes some data, tries something, and gets a positive or negative result. So again, if we just extend a little bit more with some more data points, we have exactly the same process. Now, this is all super useful, and I could impress my ex-English teacher with this, but beyond that, I don't think you can see many uses of it. However, if we start to think about a more regular phrase, so we've got Brad Pitt doing some work over in France, we can start to look for the entities. They're the things we're interested in and that we could maybe do a search with or find something about. So we can use the named entity recognizer, which will basically tell me who's who. So Brad Pitt, that's a person. And Cannes Film Festival is an organization. And France is a location. And there, straight away, I can start to look up France somewhere, Mr. Pitt somewhere, and get some information and make some decisions. This seemed super exciting. I thought within about 3 days I've more or less mastered this whole thing. So I tried it with the little phrase, I want to go to Paris for a romantic weekend. I was expecting it to find Paris as a location, romantic as a theme, and weekend as a time. Much to my disappointment, it recognized recognized Paris and completely ignored romantic and weekend. And the reason for that is it was trained in a certain way. If you train somebody to do something and only that, then that's all they'll do. And exactly the same here. And it has no intuition, no extra sort of idea of what's going on. So we needed to give it that context. We needed to teach it things that we're actually interested in, or what people are interested in. Because we don't think people are interested in going to a particular beach resort. It's that they want to go on the beach. Many will do. Another really important thing to note is the way this was trained, it was trained with the Wall Street Journal. So it would understand the Wall Street Journal. If I trained it in Shakespeare, it would understand Shakespeare. We've got to do it in travel. We've got to take the blogs, the reviews, the articles, anything that describes travel is the way people are talking about it and the way that we need to train it. So finding a little bit of relevant text was tricky. If I looked at the Google queries that came to our site, they were very much Miami hotel. People have learned, machines have taught us how we need to use them to get the results we want. So we asked a lot of people on Mechanical Turk, it's a way of collecting a lot of information, to give us some terms, some way of describing the ideal holiday. So we've got a bunch here. I want to go skiing or snowboarding in the Alps. Well, okay, what I need to do is highlight that skiing is an activity, so is snowboarding, and the Alps is your location. Same thing with the rock climbing in Malta. We've got activity and a location. After that, take something a little more low-key, and we have relaxing. Probably some sort of activity or amenity, and well, wellness center would be an amenity. And very last one, a city break. This one's really ambiguous, but we know that city break is some sort of theme of a holiday. We don't send someone to a beach here. We shouldn't have to specify if someone wants to go for 2-3 days and see somewhere in Europe. We shouldn't have to say, or shouldn't not be able to give them a suggestion. So the problem with this is it's really painful and takes a really long time. So we're now creating a way to do this automatically, because we need to do this across thousands and thousands to make it work. So if we take that previous phrase after doing all that work, and we say, I want to go to Paris for a romantic weekend, It'll start to recognize that Paris is a location, romantic is some sort of theme, or we've defined as a theme, and weekend is a nice temporal suggestion of when you're looking at going. So how did it know that we were referring to a place? What was a place and what was an activity and all that? Well, like I said, it uses machine learning, and it needed a lot of data points, i.e. examples, to make that happen. The more you give it, the more accurate it will be. And for this, we use the input and the training files, and they contain the information that let it establish the pattern. The details of how that works, we don't need to worry about too much, but I'll give you an example of what actually happens. If I give you this word here, Goodman's, that probably means a lot of different things to a lot of different people in here. There was an old hi-fi brand that did this when I was quite young. There's a steak restaurant. There's quite a few doctors and dentists in London, and I think one or two other things. But now if I said to you, I'm going to eat a Goodman's tonight, well, that's really clear what it is. We know what it is. And exactly the same thing happens with a machine. It will look for the pattern of the sentence and take the part that is missing and make sense of it, and then we can add some context. It doesn't just rely on one thing, though. It will look at many different ways it can to categorize it. So if we take the word Greenland, Ireland, and Finland, you can very quickly say, well, locations seem to end in land. Some other common location endings, Geaton, as in Nottingham, field, as in many countries ending in, well, Eald, in many countries ending in field, or Stan, which pretty much covers a lot of the countries in the east. So if we think about the phrase that we had, we can tag it and we can get some information from it. And that phrase we had before, we had, I want to go to Paris for a romantic weekend. Now we know that means they want to go on a Saturday and a Sunday, but we've got no real idea when. If we take this example to be someone from London, that's quite a short hop for quite a short duration. Our previous usage shows us that people have a different booking window. So on average, all our trips booked overall, we're looking at about 24 days. For weekend trips, about 18. So for something to Paris, we actually get a slightly different figure as well. It's a little bit lower. I don't have the exact what. And if we, maybe to give you some context, that doesn't seem too much. We're only looking for 1 week or 2 weeks in advance. If you're booking over 7 days, the booking window is about 56 days. So we can make a lot of assumptions that somebody sitting down, trained, a travel agent, just by knowing what people commonly ask for, we can do the same thing. After showing this to a lot of people, I was asked a couple of questions. Well, firstly, do people want it? We're kind of okay with the filling of the form, and the forms have got really easy. It's not a painful handwritten form. They're very slick, and they work extremely well. And also, can it work? You know, is this even possible? This seems like one of these sort of airy-fairy type things. Well, to answer the first question, yeah, we have the forms that are there, and we're very used to using them, but things are changing, especially when you take into context a speech device or a mobile device. When you talk into it, you want to ask it a question in a more natural way, rather than attempting to fill in the form on the device. We've all seen how difficult that is. And then can it work? Well, we're starting at the beginning steps. If we can teach a machine to drive a car, surely we can teach it to find some sensible suggestions of a holiday. And I want to give you an example of what maybe this can look like in this particular context. So if we take a little map over here of Europe, and I say, I would like to go to Malaga, and I walked into the travel agent, they would give me some suggestions of hotels to Malaga. But they'd also say, well, Rob, it seems like you want to go to the beach. Have you thought maybe about going to Soler? It's just around the corner in Spain. It's a little bit more interesting. Or Praia de Rocha, which is over in Portugal. Again, has the same sort of idea of a beach holiday. Because after all, I'm really looking for some sun, some sand, and some nice restaurants. Or actually, anywhere else in Europe that has exactly this criteria, this theme, this idea we're looking for. Sometimes we know we want to go to New York. Sometimes we know we want to go skiing. Where we go skiing almost doesn't matter. I showed this to my boss, and I got a lot of, well, I showed this to a lot of people, and I got a lot of oohs, and I got a lot of ahs. But one of the things that my boss said to me was, well, Rob, well, this is really good, but now make me something cool. Because what I've really done is I've given you a way of filling in a form. We're still quite constrained by that exact criteria that was there before, because that's how we build all our search engines. There's no coincidence that all them forms look similar, because what they have to use behind the scenes is exactly the same. And part of the reason, well, and the reason why this is different is we haven't produced a travel agent. All we've produced is that machine that they had, that really horrible interface, and we've given it to people. Add maybe TripAdvisor onto it. We've given a lot more information about the holidays and what you can do when you're there, and they can make their own choices. But still, there's a big missing gap, and it's the discovery and the information. And a website converts very small. I don't know the exact figures, but from 0 to maybe 3 or 5%, depending on your figures. Travel agents, starting about 30, from what I've understood. So part of it might be that the guy took the day off work to go see the travel agent. Once you're there, you're kind of half committed. But probably part of it is the interaction you get, the backwards and forwards, is an exchange of ideas that we can't offer in a very binary, here's a search, here's some results, did you like it and book, or did you not like it and bounce? That's all we really have. So what we're trying to do, and one of the reasons for this is if we look on our Expedia site, we have about 12 to 15 attributes that we can let people search on. The star rating, the proximity, the regions, or a pool, or a breakfast, a Wi-Fi. They're really common stuff. And the UI guys and the marketing guys figured out this is about the best number to not confuse people and to not make the screen impossible to deal with. But if you were to take something like NLP and let people write whatever they wanted, as long as we could find a way to detect it, we could do a search and we could say, well, I want to have a pool table. It's not a particularly common amenity, but I want to be able to just sit by the pool and go play some pool on the actual table and sit by the pool and pool on the table, and that's all I want to do. But we don't give them that ability because it's too overwhelming. So again, if we just let people ask us what you want, leave it to us to detect it, and we will give you suggestions. So we hit a little bit of a ceiling as well, because once you start asking, sorry? No, sorry, I don't have any slides for this. This was a little bit last minute, so I will show you some more in a minute, I promise. Okay, so one of the things that we also have is we have tons of data, absolutely tons of it. We've been in business for a long time, and we've got a lot of information about what people do. We know that most people from England take a holiday to either, in the summer, to either France or Spain or Greece. So let's make them suggestions. They're the most likely booking path someone will take. So let's suggest them with also the most likely hotel criteria they're looking for. When they start to ask for something, I want to take a week in summer, let's say, oh, are you thinking of a beach holiday then? Are you thinking of these sorts of amenities that make sense? We can build out that path and start to predict it. And we shouldn't be too afraid of that. Google actually, when you start typing in Google, it will suggest the end of the word or the next word. We're really comfortable with that. Amazon basically tells us what to buy next. Netflix will give you a really good suggestion of the film you're going to enjoy next. So we can apply these same techniques using the masses of data we've got to achieve a very, very similar thing. And we're not asking someone to create a new social graph, find all the friends and figure out which ones I like, or take an existing social graph and only focus on the ones. Even if I followed 10 different people on Facebook or said I like their holiday plans, that's not enough information to statistically know what I'm likely to do. They're really individual cases that don't give a broad picture. So we have a lot of data, and we're intending to use it. So what could it look like? Well, actually something simple. Just a text box. Anything you want. Tell us your story. The opening conversation that you'd have with a travel agent. Or Apple, Siri, the voice activation. We're starting to use it more and more. So if we think about an example about that conversation starter, here we go. I want to take my girlfriend to Europe on a romantic wine tasting trip in summer. We're in a luxury hotel with a relaxing pool for less than $150 a night. Possibly quite ambitious, There seems a lot of stuff to ask for, especially with the price there. But a person in an agency would consider, they'd actually have a good idea and know, well, you're going to have to sacrifice the luxury or the pool for the $150 a night here. Or instead of going to Europe, maybe you could find something cheaper for you in Argentina. They've got a lower price point on the hotels. They'd be the sort of suggestions you'd make. Now, we can achieve a very, very similar thing. We'll take each of the attributes in there. So girlfriend, that's with 2 people. To Europe, well, that's a nice big continent, but there's only a few places that do wine tasting. And the luxury hotel, the price and the amenity, the pool. Well, actually, you ask for a pool, you probably want a spa as well. It seems like a common thing people ask for in this case. So we'll try and build up a list of requirements. Once we have that, we will start to do individual searches, individual hypotheses of why you might like any of these particular hotels we're starting to suggest to you. From this, we'll combine them together. We'll bring together a big list of hotels with a reason we think that you like this hotel, a description. And over time, as people start to use it, as people start to say, yes, I like this one, or these attributes are more interesting, we can build the conversation up. It's not just a one way, I asked for something, I got something back. It's, I asked for something, I then did something else. We'll then present you with more information. We're attempting to build up, engage in a conversation with them. So the other thing as well, I'm hoping you guys like this. I hope it sounds kind of fun and kind of cool. But the point is, this isn't just for us. This isn't what we do. As far as the partner network, we build technology for our partners, for people hopefully here. And the reason we did this is because a lot of people actually asked for it. We had this idea, people seen and interested in it. It's a really innovative way of looking for something. And we loved it, so we decided to start making it. The status in at the moment, it's in our beta program. So it means there's still some work to go, but we're starting to have people use it and people be interested in it. We have a little bit of a reference UI, which I'll go through hopefully with some questions. And it's getting more and more intelligent and understanding things better and better. We're hoping with each month that passes, we'll improve the way we do things and give you a better idea. So what I'd like to do now is open up to a couple of questions for everyone and see what you think and how you'd like to use it or what things you think are wrong with it.
Questions? Good morning.
Hello.
On your example about the wine trip to, the wine tasting romantic trip, are they coming to Expedia and then doing like internal site search? Or is that like just a query on Google or Bing that someone would type in that long?
No problem. So the use case, what we deal with the partner part, we're actually quite separate. We have a lot of shared technology, but we provide our API to other partners to implement how they like. So if you thought about maybe a mobile device saying, I need a hotel for tonight, that's the sort of thing that we're looking at. We're looking at offering this technology to other people to come and use it.
More questions? Have you thought about implementing this for corporate travel management?
Okay, so obviously that's a really interesting thing that was spoken about yesterday. We're looking at detecting as many things as we can. On our ideas, should we say, rather than a roadmap, because we're more ideas than structured, we're thinking of events. So if someone says, I want to go see the Foo Fighters in Canada, they may be playing at a couple of cities. We'll look that up, find out where and find out when. To apply that to corporate, that's not much of a leap. We just need a different data source for the events that happen inside corporate travel, understand the different types of things people are doing. Again, if you said someone traveling from New York to Europe, if they're taking a 2-3 week trip, and it's 2 adults, 2 children, that's a family. If it's 2 people, it's a couple. If it's one person going for 2-3 days, it's a business traveler. We can start to build a profile up and use it in that particular way.
Any more questions?
So when I use this technology, the result set that will be displayed will be of Expedia, or can I use it on my own site as well?
Okay, so we are providing it with our inventory. As far as the commercial, we'll explain how we came to that conclusion as well. So that as a partner, you'll understand what we were up to and why we came there, so you can feed that back to the person. As for whether you can put your inventory on there, I'm not a commercial person, so I don't know the contracty type things that go around that. So I'll find you someone later that might be able to help. Yes, okay, so one of the key things is, imagine a partner that's an airline. It might be really helpful for us to send them to some obscure Greek island, but if they don't send a plane there, that's really not what they want. So we're going to have to make it with whitelists and blacklists or whatever other thing that needs to make sense, is explain to them, these are the profiles of the people, and these are the possible things that we're going to allow to go there. And we'll go in that way. Another really common scenario is a deal. If we have a promotion on somewhere, and we're quite flexible with what we're asking for, depending on the percent, we'll find out how valuable that is to somebody. And again, over time, we'll get better and better.
Of course.
You said that the beta version is already launched. Right,
Yes.
for the application. Have you seen any uplift in the conversions?
Okay, so what we have with the betas, we don't have any people making bookings as yet.
Okay.
We're having people creating UIs. I can show you, this is one of our internal ones, and you'll see why we are more partner focused. This is our UI. It needs some sort of fancy UX work, let's put it like this. But if we asked for something here, oh, I've lost my mouse. No. Okay, yes, there we are, fantastic, thank you. So if we take a little example, so I want a romantic weekend. Paris. It's start to find the places and any hotels that match. Unfortunately, you can't see at the bottom, but it's also detected the amenity of romantic. It's a theme. We actually recognize this as a theme. And also we recognize weekend is a time range, and we started to default that 2 weeks in advance because that's when people travel for a weekend. Other things, if you said amazing pool, we have a list of all the hotels with a pool. But a lot of pools are quickly dug out the back to tick that criteria, and some have a slide, some have a jet stream, a little waterfall. And if someone asks for an amazing pool, they want the second one, not the first one. And we're finding a way of not just making our attributes binary, but understanding the way people have described things, often through reviews, often through blogs, through other techniques, and present the information that's more relevant to them.
Sure. So when you launch this technology,
Yeah.
right, what's your assumption that what percentage of your customer will start using this as a primary search mechanism? Because
What would you say, what type of customer? Or?
as in, what percentage of customer will start using this as a primary search tool?
Oh, okay.
Because we're all of us are quite used to, I'm from here, I want to go there, just find me a hotel.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, the reason they all have that particular form is probably because most people do that. What we're trying to do, we're trying to give another alternative. We don't actually know how this will work. We are looking for, we have a couple of partners, we're looking for some more partners that are interested to take this technology on and use it. We feel that the mobile space is something that makes a lot of sense. No one likes filling in the form. If you can ask for it, it's going to be a lot easier. I don't have any good figures to give you. This is just an innovation, and we hope some people are keen to try it and see where it goes.
Do we have any more questions from the floor?
Hi. If I understand correctly, you're using like business intelligence, your data, to be able to help formulate this conversation. Is that correct?
That's one of the things we're using, yes.
Okay,
So, yes, go on.
So if I were interested in using your technology, whose data is actually behind it?
Right, okay, so we have our anonymized bookings of all the people that have made purchases before, and we can see the trends that have happened from our partners or from Expedia internal, and that's where we start to build up the picture. If you're talking about a partner that has enough data points, they can say, well, actually, we're more interested in our profile, our customers. Or if you can present a profile of customers, we can group them and do it like that. We're still stepping into this space and making use of it. But we're trying to go away from not just business intelligence, but genuinely make it learn from its mistakes. It will make mistakes. It's like a 5-year-old kid with a supercomputer on its head. It's going to bash into things and make a mess of it. But the more it does it, the better it's going to get.
Got a question over here?
I'll talk about languages. I'm particularly interested in Slavic languages and whether you kind of recognize any specifics in implementation on those languages, because business intelligence, you know, takes different algorithms, kind of so.
Of course. Okay. So with regards to business intelligence, you have different profiles of people from different places. If I said I wanted a cheap holiday in Thailand, well, everything's under $50 maybe for a hotel. That doesn't actually narrow it down. You need to understand the location. And for Thai people, a cheap holiday in New York is probably quite expensive. So that's one thing to come in the South. Each region will have its specific trends and other things we need to try and recognize. With regards to language, I was really passionate to say, I mean, I'm Italian and I speak a few languages, and I'm really passionate to say, I don't want to just make this for English. But we've had some trouble. It's kind of difficult to do just for English. And some languages are really tricky. We're starting out here, but we're always keeping in mind, we have a couple of ideas of ways of doing it. When you think about predicting what word comes next, that's actually language agnostic. It makes no difference because you look at the pattern someone does and you find out what comes next. With the entities and recognizing what's a swimming pool and what's something else, we need to run through all the data in all the different languages, Slavic being one of them. Again, as well, you can't translate English to Chinese, it makes a big mess. But if you took French, you can translate French into Spanish, Italian, Portuguese quite easily. So each languages have their unique structures and things they're quite similar to. It's something that's really keen for us, but at the moment, what you see is just going to be in English for the next few months anyway.
Okay, we still have around 10 minutes. Do we have any more questions from the floor?
So once you've got the query like that, how do you present the results? Like, do you still just get a list of hotels? Things like the Argentina example, how do you...
Okay, so what we have is, if we did the wine tasting one, we would have, because we did a bunch of different searches, we found all the places where they had wine tasting. That would include lots of different regions. Then all the places, well, because they said Europe, so all the places in Europe. All the places with a pool, all the places with their price range, et cetera, et cetera. A couple of other ones too. And we'll build them searches on top of each other and merge them together. So what you'll find is a hotel in Argentina, and it'll explain, well, we detected wine tasting and the price, and it matched these two criteria. And when you said in France, we detected the price, the location, and the amenity, and we detected these criteria. As that individual then goes through and starts to see, they'll be able to see which ones they liked and which ones they didn't like. And it will very quickly start to adjust the strength of the criteria. So again, imagine if you're someone, well, would you consider Argentina? And if no one's looking at it, then you can probably assume that's not something they're interested in. So we're going to present to the partner a really rich explanation of what we've done, with the hope that they'll then give us information about of what that person liked. We need to create the feedback, otherwise this will never learn.
So you talked about having to sort of constantly train over, more and more and more and add more intelligence. But what would be, like, what is the recommended initial training time? Because you have to get over some certain hump to just have some relevant results, right?
Of course. Now, we can already give relevant results from the sort of phrases we're thinking of. We've got enough reliability to detect locations and start to detect amenities. We can also detect the slightly more obscure amenities as well. When we start to think about, well, one of the things we're doing now is to present this idea of a hypothesis, merging all these different possibilities together. We don't quite yet know. We're going to score everything the same. And as people start to use it, it'll start to adjust. We don't yet know how that adjustment will happen or how much we need to do it. Only time will tell. So I can't give you a definitive answer, but soon, hopefully. So if we add what, sorry? Texas. Okay, in this example, I don't know. This site, I will warn you, changes every day because we are updating it literally like that. Okay, so it has gone no. Very simply. What we are doing with our current one at the moment is we're detecting multiple locations. We're not going to be able to say if someone says, I want to go to Paris, then Texas, then Alaska, we'll actually get that ideally, completely. Ah, I see, okay, no problems. So, I think that's more luck than learning in that case. Well, we're not really doing it in percents. We're just explaining these are the numbers behind it, and then, you know. Detection of Paris and Texas. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, so what we found is with that chunk of text that we were given by the Mechanical Turk, people were writing things like, as crazy as this seemed to me, they were writing queries like that, which didn't make any sense to me. So when I trained it, we went through, that's exactly what it was finding. Now, when I typed in Paris, it went, well, I'm expecting a comma and something else for me to think it's a location, because that's the structure. So we're having to now, what we're doing is we're falling back. We have a little fallback mechanism to go, well, take the string and try and figure out what it is, not just on that, look it up in all our different possibilities and come to the best conclusion. Once we've come to the best conclusion, if it hasn't been marked as being incorrect, we'll just tag that and add it to the training, and then we have a more stronger and stronger training. So the idea is, as everyone starts to use it, it'll start to improve little by little, well, actually quite quickly in this sense.
More questions? We still have a few minutes left. Would you like to run another example? No? Would you like to run another example?
So one of the other things, this UI unfortunately doesn't show this very well, but if you say I want a spa, maybe I spell it right. Okay, let me try a pool instead. It seems to now. Let me reload the page actually, be safer. No, okay, it's not going to do it. What it should do is recognize that you wanted a pool and then give you all the cities that have the most, oh, there we go, thank you. So it's basically found out that Mallorca, there's about 573 hotels with a pool there. And Bali Islands, there's them. And you can see them ones. So if you imagine this on a map, you'd start to see, oh, there's a big cluster here, there's a big cluster here, there's a big cluster there. If we picked a slightly more sensible amenity rather than a pool, it would give a theme to somebody and give someone some ideas of where they can do this particular thing. The more you add in, the more there is and the more relevant it is. Again, adding 10 amenities really shrinks your list down. And that's why we're starting to do the hypothesis. Because if I ask for 10 things, I'll probably accept 8. And 2 are missing, as long as they're the 8 that I really wanted. Okay, all right, well, thank you so much, everyone. And I'll be around, and I'll put my email address back up. If anyone wants to ask any questions afterwards, please feel free. Thank you.
Thank you.